they possibly can.
Right.
The marriage penalty, is this going to be phased out? What is the plan here for that?
I think it'll be phased out. I think that'll end up being part of the House and the Senate tax plan that's passed. And I think it's important. You shouldn't be penalized tax-wise for getting married.
Or dying.
Or dying either.
Yeah.
No taxation without respiration. But government should encourage marriage. There's too many divorces out there, frankly, and one of those reasons shouldn't be over you pay higher taxes when you're married.
We'll put the pedal to the metal. We'll go to the break tonight, but we did an interview with a lady from AAA today who said there are some out there, some economists saying that we could be paying not only what we paid last summer for gas, but $2.50 a gallon. Ouch. We'll talk gas taxes. Could we suspend those, scale them back a little bit? But wait a minute, what about infrastructure and highways? Toll free 1-888-OH-TALKS, 1-888-648-2557. Everybody's so tired of winter time. Spring is right around the corner, and then today we do an interview with a lady from AAA who says, well, guess what? Some economists are saying not only will the gas prices be back up to where they were last summer, but $2.50 a gallon. I'm going to ride my bicycle to work, or even I'll take the bus. Well, maybe I should take the bus. But gas taxes last summer, Scott, came up to be a big issue. Governors across all 50 states were really asked some tough questions about repealing, suspending, scaling them back some. Gas taxes, though, pay for infrastructure improvements, highways. We hate potholes this time of the year. Where does the Taxpayers Association stand on gas taxes?
Well, Governor Taft here in Ohio simply doesn't have the legal authority to temporarily repeal the tax. So that was a problem, and there really wasn't enough time to do it through the legislature. We'd like to see in the future maybe a bill passed to give the governor that authority in case of high gas prices or natural disaster or something like that. He could temporarily repeal the taxes. But you do make a good point. Those gas taxes do pay for roads and highways and construction, and frankly, a lot of local officials would like to see the gas tax going even higher to help fix potholes and so on. And Department of Transportation here in Ohio has really stretched their budget about as far as they can go, and really one of the more efficient agencies in state government. So I think it's probably not going to happen anytime soon for a gas tax cut.
That kind of takes our highway back to the Bush tax plan, and read an op-ed from Mr. Friedman from the New York Times talking about, well, he would agree that, look, it is our money. Tax dollars really are the people's money, but after a while it comes down to the old Fram filter commercial about, pay me now, pay me later. Do you want good infrastructure? Do you want good highways? What do you want here? Because sometimes someone is going to have to pay. So maybe this tax cut is a little bit too much on the national level. We need to pay down the debt even more. We need to make sure that we have our highways and bridges and infrastructure ready to go in this country.
We would prefer as an organization that our highways be taken care of strictly by the state. And how we would do that is we would no longer send our gas tax money to Washington, D.C. We just keep it here in Ohio and then use the money to fix our roads ourselves. Because you know how it works, we actually send more money to Washington than we get back. And the way the formula works out, we could probably cut the federal gas tax portion a little bit if we kept it here in Ohio and then use the money to take care of our roads ourselves.
Also, a lot of people trying to take care of themselves with their 401k plans. One thing we didn't talk about within the Bush plan is 401ks and also Roth IRAs, is that right?
Yeah, Roth and the traditional IRAs, what they're looking at doing is increasing the limits of what you can contribute to your 401k and increasing, I think, up to $5,000 per year what you can contribute to either your Roth or your traditional IRA. And we think this is really one of the hidden pluses of the tax plan, because as more and more people utilize these things, we have more and more Americans are becoming shareholders in companies.
Yeah.
And it really changes folks' perspective on the economy and how our money's spent to know that they have a stake in our economy.
Also, the old saying applies, it's not what you make, it's what you save. And that certainly was a standard right after the Second World War, but today everybody is knee-deep in credit card bills and trying to pay for Christmas 6 months after Christmas is over on their credit cards with 20-some%. I mean, saving has to be part of the Taxpayers Association's platform somewhere in there.
Oh, it clearly is, and we think government should give incentives to save. Frankly, you know, the United States has a very low savings rate, and that's a dangerous trend that's going on. You know, when our generation gets to retirement age, we need to really be prepared to take care of ourselves, because we don't know if Social Security will be there or not for us. So,
are you for privatizing some part of it?
Yeah, we are. You know, back as Steve Forbes, one of our national board members, really pushed that during his campaign, and George Bush really took that up, and we strongly support his plan to privatize a portion of that.
You know, also, as we get back to our last minute and a half tonight, one thing that I missed that I wanted to ask you about within the whole school funding plan was, if indeed it was necessary, that we could call upon a multi-state lottery system, also calling upon video lottery games at these state racetracks. The Ohio lottery, when it first came about, was billed as a savior of education. It's going to save, and now we know it only accounts for a small percentage of the entire education budget. As far as the whole video lottery and also expanding out to like a Powerball game, the Taxpayers Association says,
we oppose the Powerball. We think that would expand gambling too much. We do, however, support the idea of video lottery terminals at racetracks. We feel that anyone that's going to a racetrack knows why they're going there, and probably does a little bit of gambling, and it's up to their personal choice whether they want to do that or not. I think it's important to point out that VLTs, the gambling machines at the racetracks, won't be used to fund school funding. It'll be used to fund the other parts of state government. And maybe they'll even use that money to cut income taxes or something like that down the road.
And there is a income tax reduction fund that the Taxpayers Association helped phase in, what, back in 95 or so?
Yeah, it was back around that time, and I think this year about $610 million is going back to taxpayers, so that's a pretty good chunk. And we're hoping in starting next year maybe to have a permanent across-the-board income tax cut.
And as we leave you, you're looking at phone numbers and also websites of tax aid preparation and programs. As we talked about taxes tonight, tax policy, the Ohio Taxpayers Association, OhioTaxpayers.com. Scott, thanks a lot for talking with us. Ohio, thank you for talking with us. And remember, we're always listening. In depth tonight, the countdown's already begun. Ohioans have just more than 30 days to get their taxes filed. The state taxes, marriage penalties, and also the Bush tax cut. Is it the government's money or yours? On tonight's Ohio's Talking, Scott Pullins from the Ohio Taxpayers Association talked about tax issues focusing on the use tax, estate tax, marriage tax, and the gas tax.
Tax has been on the books since 1936, but it really hasn't been enforced until now, and I think it's because of the growth of the internet and catalog sales this has come about. Essentially, if you buy something on the internet and the company doesn't collect sales taxes for it, you're required to voluntarily send in those tax dollars. Problem is most people aren't going to do that, and they've tried here in Ohio now by adding a line on your tax form to get people to send it in. We think that's a bad idea, and the experience in other states has been, you know, folks still don't send it in, and we would prefer they just abolish that tax. We're really concerned there about privacy concerns. You know, I don't want the state of Ohio to know what I buy on the internet. Frankly, it's not government's business what I buy on the internet. And we think that's just a way of harassing taxpayers into paying these taxes. Well, frankly, the rich don't pay state taxes because, you know, they can put together an army of accountants and lawyers and estate planners in order to get around the estate tax. You're really hurting people that maybe own a car dealership that's worth $1 million, or they own a family farm that's worth a couple $1 million, and they pass it on to their descendants, and then all of a sudden they have the choice of either selling the dealership or the farm, or paying the tax, or not being able to pay the taxes. It's really the smaller businesses that are, worth a few $1 million that are really taking a big hit. I think it'll be phased out. I think that'll end up being part of the House and the Senate tax plan that's passed. And I think it's important, you shouldn't be penalized tax-wise for getting married.
Or dying.
Or dying either. Yeah. No taxation without respiration. But, government should encourage marriage. There's too many divorces out there, frankly, and, one of those reasons shouldn't be over you pay higher taxes when you're married. We would prefer as an organization that our highways be taken care of strictly by the state. And how we would do that is we would no longer send our gas tax money to Washington, D.C. We'd just keep it here in Ohio and then use the money to fix our roads ourselves.
10 TV, Central Ohio's most watched news station. This is 10 TV Eyewitness News at 6.
Some are saying, though, today's decision does not fix that problem at all. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Kaler.
And I'm Angela Pace. In a 4-3 ruling, the Ohio Supreme Court determined that the state's school funding system would be constitutional with the additional spending. The court also ordered the state to recalculate how it funds schools and to speed up funding to poor school districts. 10 TV Eyewitness News reporter Kelly Hudson is at the State House tonight with a look at how the state might pay for all this. Kelly?
Angela, first it's important to note that today's decision leaves an open door for the coalition that sued 10 years ago. They can sue again, the court says, if the state does not comply with its wishes. And what a tall wish list it is. It is a tall order coming from the justices today. According to State House number crunchers, preliminary numbers show that the additional funds needed over the next 2 years is $2.5 billion in new money. $1.25 billion would have to be raised immediately. Senate President Richard Finan toyed with possible solutions today. He says one idea, cut the newly passed budget by 45%, or increase income taxes by 17%, or increase the sales taxes by 1 1/4%. Finan, of course, says he doesn't believe any of that will pass go. And the nonprofit Ohio Taxpayers Association quickly condemned any tax increase. And again, Senator Finan says they don't think it will be possible to comply with the court's order.
Again, we think the court's acting sort of as a super legislature and really usurping the role of the legislature and the governor.
We are not in the Ohio Senate going to raise taxes, especially in a time that finds us in an economic downturn.
Good evening. I'm John Fortney. A little work in Ohio's school funding plan may become constitutional, but it's not quite there yet, and that is the latest ruling from the Ohio Supreme Court. It took nearly 3 months to deliberate. The Ohio Department of Education agrees for the most part with the justices and urges the people of Ohio to realize the most important part of school funding is not the money, but getting every Ohio student a quality education. Dr. Susan Taves-Zoman, the state school superintendent, says, quote, now we need to make sure that Ohio's education stakeholders work together to lessen antagonisms that have too often prevented us from identifying and adopting solutions. Dr. Zoman also urged people to wait to estimate financial impact. The Department of Education will work on providing that information soon. Not everyone is happy with this decision. Lawmakers say it could be impossible to comply with the court order without raising taxes, a move the Ohio Taxpayers Association quickly condemned.
Again, we think the court's acting sort of as a super legislature and really usurping the role of the legislature and the governor.
We are not in the Ohio Senate going to raise taxes, especially
At 5:30, a decision is handed down by the Ohio Supreme Court on the state's controversial school funding problem. A coalition of districts sued 10 years ago, claiming the funding was unconstitutional. 10 TV Eyewitness News reporter Christine Dobbin is live at the State House. And Christine, even though a decision has been made, the issue is far from over.
It certainly is, Lisa. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money. The goal, of course, is to give every student in the state the same amount of money regardless of the school district that they live in. The High Court ruled 4-3 yesterday that the state's new proposal would be constitutional if the state increases spending. But where will all of that money come from? Some State House officials say $2.5 billion is needed over the next 2 years to fix the problem. To come up with that kind of money, though, Senate President Richard Finan tossed out a few possible solutions. Cut the newly passed budget by 45%, increase income tax by 17%, or increase the sales tax by 1 to 1.25%. The nonprofit Ohio Taxpayers Association, though, quickly condemned any tax increases.
Again, we think the court's acting sort of as a super legislature and really usurping the role of the legislature and the governor.
We are not in the Ohio Senate going to raise taxes, especially in a time...
President Richard Finan tossed out a few possible solutions: cut the newly passed budget by 45%, increase the income tax by 17%, or increase the sales tax by 1 to 1.25%. The nonprofit Ohio Taxpayers Association, though, quickly condemned any tax increase.
Again, we think the court's acting sort of as a super legislature and really usurping the role of the legislature and the governor.
We are not in the Ohio Senate going to raise taxes, especially in a time...
With the decision, lawmakers say it could be impossible to comply with the court order without raising taxes, a move the Ohio Taxpayers Association quickly condemned.
Again, we think the court's acting sort of as a super legislature and really usurping the role of the legislature and the governor.
We are not in the Ohio Senate going to raise taxes, especially in a time...
Not everyone is happy with the decision. Lawmakers say it could be impossible to comply with the court order without raising taxes, a move the Ohio Taxpayers Association quickly condemned.
Again, we think the court's acting sort of as a super legislature and really usurping the role of the legislature and the governor.
The ruling does leave the possibility for the Department of Education will work on providing that information soon. Not everyone is happy with the decision. Lawmakers say it could be impossible to comply with the court order without raising taxes, a move the Ohio Taxpayers Association quickly condemned.
Again, we think the court's acting sort of as a super legislature and really usurping the role of the legislature and the governor.
The ruling does leave the possibility for the coalition